Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Duke It Out Wrestling Podcast, where I, Duke, talk about events from the past, present, or future in the world of professional wrestling. Now I am here to predict another AEW pay-per-view, the second AEW pay-per-view of 2026, which will be AEW Dynasty. I am very excited for this show, and I think the one advantage that I think Dynasty could have over Revolution is this fact could not remain true after today because Collision is still not aired, so we don't know this for sure. But I think with the fact that Dynasty has a lot less matches on the card compared to Revolution, I think that could be a real advantage. I think the pay-per-view could probably still remain the same amount of time that Revolution was, but I think with the few less matches, it gives a few more of the matches on the card a lot more time to develop and just have more of a likelihood to be a match of the year candidate than it might already have the likelihood of being a match of the year candidate. Now, I'm going to go through all the matches from the one match announced on the 0 hour to then all the 8 matches announced on the main card, and I will go through who I think's going to win or who I want to win. And the first match I'm going to be talking about is, like I mentioned, the only match announced so far for the 0 hour. After Collision, that could definitely change. But as I'm making this podcast, the only match announced for the 0 hour is Alex Windsor versus Marina Shafir. This should be a really fun match. I think it's really good that they decided to put this match on the card, whether it was the main card or 0 hour, especially because there is only one women's match on the main card, so that is one of the biggest downfalls in the hype to this pay-per-view. But I think it was smart to do this with the fact that we got Jon Moxley and Will Ospreay on this card as well. It's kind of another way to have the female representative of the Death Riders go up against Will Ospreay's wife. Or if they're not married or not yet, I don't know for sure. I don't know the fact for sure at the moment. But this should be a really fun match. And as for who I think is going to win, there was a time where I was thinking it would be Marina Shafir, because if you watched my Revolution predictions, then you would know that I was pretty much thinking that they were using the match with Toni Storm to really hype up Marina Shafir even more with the already well-booked character stuff that they had done for her last year. But I think after her losing to Toni, I really don't know what the future is going to be holding for her, if they're really wanting for her to hold to any singles titles anytime soon, because that was the path I thought they were heading toward. But now after with that loss to Toni Storm, I'm not so sure. So I am going to go with Alex Windsor, and not just because of the fact that Marina lost to Toni at Revolution, but it will also factor into my predictions for Moxley and Ospreay, which I will get into later. And now we will move on to the main card, and the first match from the main card that I will be talking about is Chris Jericho versus Ricochet, or just Jericho, because since Jericho signed this new contract with AEW, he has been only addressing himself by just Jericho. So, there have been a lot of opinions of Chris Jericho's return to AEW. I've been planning to make a video talking about Chris Jericho's return to AEW. I don't know whether or not I will still do that, because I don't know if it's too late to talk about that kind of stuff or not. But I'm pretty pleased with Jericho returning to AEW. I know there's plenty of people that were like, oh God, not this again. Here we go. Now we got Jericho back. He's going to steal a lot of TV time, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of people were thinking he was going to be leaving AEW and going to WWE. And when I was hearing about that, I understood it because, yeah, Jericho had been in WWE for decades almost. He'd been there for almost 20 years. If you include WCW, he was there for 20 years. So it would have made sense if he wanted to go back there for one final run. But then after the Rumble and the Chamber, and still no sign of Jericho, I was kind of thinking, okay, maybe we will see him return to AEW after all. And then we did, and I'm actually very excited for it. Because to be quite honest with you, if we are going to be seeing any type of final run with Chris Jericho, I would still much rather see it in AEW than WWE. I think there's a lot more fresh opponents to work with, whereas opposed to if he signed with WWE, I think you could do some good repeat feuds with people like Kevin Owens, but when it comes to new opponents, I think the lineup is way better in AEW, and especially with the history he's already made in AEW, I think it just made sense for him to stay around there. Not to say he won't make one final run in WWE, because Jericho has said he is planning to stick around the world for pro wrestling for more than at least 3 to 4 years. So we'll see how everything happens. But back to the match itself. Jericho and Ricochet should be a pretty fun match. There's going to be some great character work throughout. Jericho's definitely going to slap Ricochet's bald head at some point. And since Jericho brought the list gimmick back a little bit for AEW, maybe Ricochet's going to try and grab the list and just like destroy it or something, rip up all the pieces of paper or something to get the crowd extra heated at Ricochet. This shouldn't be anything match of the year candidate worthy, but this should be a very entertaining match and a very welcome return to Chris Jericho in AEW. And I think he is going to end up beating Ricochet for this match. Not to say that Jericho losing would be a bad thing. I just think that for his return match, they're probably going to book him to win. And the second match that I will be talking about on the main card is the Young Bucks versus the Don Callis family, members being Kazuchika Okada and Konosuke Takeshita. Now, I think this is going to be a very fun match. The feud with the Don Callis family and the Young Bucks has been kind of building up for quite a while now. So I feel like this is going to be both the crescendo of the Young Bucks feud with the Don Callis family, and I think it's going to be the crescendo of Okada and Takeshita finally just blowing everything the fuck up and trying to destroy each other. That's what I'm hoping to happen in this match. But regardless, we are going to get some phenomenal tag team wrestling. If you don't remember the match at Wrestle Dream that Okada and Takeshita had with Brodito, then you would know that they can have a freaking awesome tag team match. And if they're going up against the Young Bucks, one of the greatest tag teams of all time, then it just speaks for itself right there. And I really am hoping for this match to exceed any fans' expectations, even the ones who are thinking this could be the match of the night. This could be outstanding, especially if they really dig deep in the story work and make all of the potential interference spots as much fun as it can be. And just the feud with Okada and Takeshita just further building up throughout the match will just be wonderful to see. And I think because of what I mentioned with Okada and Takeshita finally coming to blows and just aiming at each other instead of trying to go for the Young Bucks, it is going to lead to the Young Bucks getting a victory, especially to get a solid win back after their loss to FTR at Revolution. And I feel like this will probably either really start the build up to an Okada versus Takeshita singles match that's not a part of the C2, or when we're going to get it at Double or Nothing, or they're going to try to build this up a little bit more and we finally get that Okada Takeshita match at All In. I'm not sure which route they're going to go. I'd be fine with either though. And I believe the last match that I'm going to be talking about that is non-title for this pay-per-view is Andrade El Idolo versus Darby Allin. And if Darby Allin wins, he gets a shot at the AEW World Championship following Dynasty. I am very excited for this match. As you've if you've watched any of the AEW videos I've been making lately, I've been a huge fan of what Andrade has been doing since coming back to AEW. His ring work has been phenomenal, and his character work might be even better. And so I am all on board with what he's been doing, and I'm also really liking how they've been kind of teasing Andrade, sometimes not liking the specific heel tactics that the Don Callis family members go to. And I am wondering if they're really trying to build that up, because with the extra popularity on Andrade lately, that they might want to lean toward turning him into a babyface, which I could see happening. And I think him kind of questioning the ethics of the decision-making from the Don Callis family is a way to really build that up, and for them to kind of just pull the trigger on that whenever they'd want, because they've already been building it up. So it's not like the moment is going to come from out of nowhere like an RKO. So, anyway, back to the match. I am very curious, though, on what the result is going to be, because Darby's had a pretty decent winning streak lately. Usually he loses a lot of the big matches, but I think he's won his last 2 pay-per-view matches. He won the singles match with Gabe Kidd at World's End, and then he won the 6-man tornado tag against the War Dogs. So I am wondering, are they trying to really book some built-up dominance for Darby and lead to him beating Andrade, who has beaten people like Swerve and Kenny recently, and Bandito? I feel like that would be a really solid storyline to really just build up Darby even more for the potential world title match against either MJF or Kenny Omega. But I am wondering if they're gonna pull the trigger on it yet. Very similar to what I mentioned with the feud between Okada and Takeshita. Are we going to see Darby Allin get a world title match at Double or Nothing, or are we going to see Darby get a world title match at All In, or maybe even Forbidden Door? I don't know for sure. So, but I am gonna try to see which one I'm more so leaning toward, and I am more so leaning toward Darby taking the win here. I feel like this would probably be beyond the I Quit match against Jon Moxley, the strongest singles win that he would have on an AEW pay-per-view. And I feel like it wouldn't damage Andrade at all, especially with the great victories that he's had lately, along with the amazing matches. So I feel like Andrade could afford this loss, and especially if they're wanting to slowly book Andrade into a babyface, he could lose to Darby, he could shake hands with Darby, and then that can make Don Callis being like, hey, what the fuck? Why are you being respectful, man? I don't like that. And also I feel like it would be a good storyline. Especially with the fact that Kyle Fletcher got injured, that could be told as a reason why the Don Callis family starts to crumble. And if neither member of the Don Callis family gets a victory on the next AEW pay-per-view, it could then lead to more cracks being shown on AEW TV, which I think it is going that route. So I am going to lead toward Darby getting the win. And the first title match that I'm going to be talking about is the Casino Gauntlet for the vacant TNT Championship. As I had recently mentioned, they brought up on Dynamite that Kyle Fletcher is out with injury and he will be out for many months. First, really hoping for a speedy recovery to Kyle Fletcher because he has been one of my favorite wrestlers right now and probably in the top 5 to top 3 best wrestlers of last year. He had an incredible year last year in AEW. And from this first quarter of 2026, it was looking to then just build up to be even stronger. So I hope as soon as he comes back, he can then just continue the dominance that he has maintained in All Elite Wrestling. But now back to the TNT Championship Gauntlet. I am very excited for this. The Gauntlet matches have been very, very good in AEW lately. Even if sometimes they can be a bit overbooked, there's something in the match that's always going to stick and be memorable and be so much fun. And I think this is another extra reason why there are a bit less matches on this main card than as opposed to Revolution last month. Because you can have a lot more people compete in this match than usual, and you can get a lot more people from the roster on the card, and I think that's just a bonus for not just us the fans to be entertained with these wrestlers, but for the wrestlers themselves to get a pay-per-view paycheck. And I think the only competitors announced for this Battle Royal right now are Tommaso Ciampa and Rush. And I'm sure there's going to be many others that are going to be coming in. I don't know if it's going to be any new people that are fresh signings. I feel like if anything, that's going to be more of a fresh appearance. They just had Callum Newman, who recently won the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, also becoming the youngest man to ever win that title. And they just had him compete on Dynamite, teaming with United Empire and Will Ospreay. And I think they're definitely going to have him show up in that Casino Gauntlet. I feel like if he isn't having to go back to do a show in New Japan that weekend, they might as well put him in that Casino Gauntlet because that'll be a very fun appearance. And like I mentioned, I don't think there's going to be any like new signings that can make appearances. I'm trying to think of potential returns from injury or anything like that. We could see the whole ordeal of El Clone and Hologram. I don't know if Hologram is cleared yet to come back, but if he is, I feel like that could be a really fun segment for the Casino Gauntlet. But as to who I think is going to win, I'm mainly leaning toward two different people, and I was still torn when I was writing down my actual prediction on who I think it's actually going to be. And I'm torn between Tommaso Ciampa and Brody King. Obviously, with Tommaso Ciampa's case, he had won the TNT title in his debut match in AEW, but then lost it not too long after to Kyle Fletcher. And that made a lot of people complain that, oh, you didn't really give Tommaso Ciampa much of a chance. Is that an instant burial? So that's just an instant, oh, we can give Tommaso Ciampa this instant moment to shine, but now they're just going to slide him back to the mid-card and he'll not do much anymore after that. I was kind of worried about that, even though I thought Kyle Fletcher is amazing with the TNT title and all, but I was kind of bummed that Tommaso Ciampa wasn't able to get a real proper reign with the TNT title. So I think with the circumstances that happened, you could use this as a way to then just put the title back on Ciampa and give him the reign that fans were more so wanting to see. And maybe by having him turn heel, because one thing that I've been thinking about, and I'm sure I've mentioned it before in my Revolution predictions, that I've been thinking that Swerve Strickland is going to be starting a heel stable. And I think one of the best members for that would be Tommaso Ciampa, since he was, I think, a part of the embassy in Ring of Honor with Prince Nana. So I think that would be a awesome team up, and plus any tag team matches with Swerve and Tommaso Ciampa are going to be cathartic as hell. And I think that would be a great boost for Tommaso Ciampa in AEW. So I think if they do book him to win, they should have him turn heel and tease the alliance with Swerve Strickland that I've been low-key wanting to see for over a month. And as for Brody King, he has been one of the most over talents in AEW this year. And he has missed the past couple of Dynamites dealing with a personal issue. But I feel like if they had him come out, he'd immediately be hot with the crowd and he gets the win. I feel like that would be an awesome moment. And I think Brody King has really deserved it. He has done an amazing job in any position that they've put him in AEW. And he has already held tag team gold in AEW, both the trios and tag team titles. So I think it's a due enough time for him to get his first singles title in AEW. It's long overdue, actually. And I feel like this would be a really nice time to do it. I'm more so torn on which of the storylines I'd want to see more, because I'd love to see both. I really would love to see a heel title reign from Ciampa again, and I would love to see a Brody King singles title reign in AEW. So for who I'm going to guess is my official prediction, only since Brody King is not confirmed booked for the show, I'm going to go with Ciampa. But if I am watching the pay-per-view and I see that Brody King becomes one of the people in the gauntlet, I'm immediately going to say, well, Brody's winning. So yeah, there we go. Brody's winning the title. But I'm going to stick with Ciampa for now. But if there's anyone else that I think is a possibility, it's especially Brody King. And the next match I will talk about is for the AEW Tag Team Championships, FTR versus Cope and Christian. The second tag team match between these teams, the last being at All Out last year. When it comes to this feud, I think the build-up has been very entertaining. It hasn't been anything groundbreaking, but it has been entertaining as hell, especially thanks to Stokely Hathaway, whether it's his mic work or him randomly hitting a spear on Christian. He has been the most entertaining part of the storyline portion of this feud, for sure. And, I really enjoyed their match at All Out last year. I was there live for All Out, so there's a bit of extra bias there. But I was thinking there could have been a bit more with the match. Maybe I was getting a bit too annoyed with the extra resilient spots with Copeland and Christian, but I was hoping for a bit more, and I feel like this match is going to really fulfill that itch that I was still having at the ending of their match at All Out. But I am a lot more torn on the prediction for this than I would have expected, especially because Cope and Christian got the win at All Out. So they already have a victory against FTR. And it's already, chances are very likely that this feud is going to end with Cope and Christian holding on to the tag team titles. But I'm wondering if they're going to do it yet. Maybe they do want to build this up a bit more. And especially with the fact that FTR would have not gotten a win, and the fact that Cope and Christian could maybe just say, for the entirety of their careers, that FTR never beat them, I don't know if that would necessarily be a great thing for FTR. So I think that's especially why I'm going to say that FTR is going to get the win here. And especially because both of their matches have been in Canada, and since Cope and Christian got the celebratory victory in Toronto, even though Cope and Beth got attacked right after, I feel like since they got the win there, they're then going to give this win to FTR, and then we'll see the conclusion of the trilogy in maybe a ladder match. Because, come on, it's Cope and Christian. And the next title match that I will get into is Tekla versus Jamie Hayter for the AEW Women's World Championship. Tekla's reign as AEW Women's Champion has been pretty solid so far. And when I was mentioning my predictions in her match with Chris Statlander at Revolution, I mentioned that they need to really build up a lot more time for Tekla to have this belt to really solidify her as a proper champion, especially to some fans who might not be as aware of her compared to other of their world champions in the women's division, like a Toni Storm. So I feel like that prediction I mentioned for Revolution kind of sticks to the same thing here. I think if you do give it to Jamie Hayter here, it would kind of just make Tekla more so of a forgettable champion. And I don't want that, because Tekla has been an awesome performer, and I feel like she has been showing herself to be one of the best characters in the women's division. And so I feel like I would like to see her carry this belt until maybe All In or even All Out. And I feel like she has the capabilities to do it. And if you let the Sisters of Sin become even more of a powerhouse heat magnet, then it's going to be even better. And I feel like, another main reason why I don't think that Tekla is losing here is because it has seemed like Jamie Hayter has been the opponent to really establish a champion when they've won it, but they're not going to give it to her, which is unfair because I really want to see a redemption reign from Jamie Hayter. But with the matches that she's had, whether with Toni Storm or Chris Statlander and now Tekla, it's seeming like it's mainly to establish the opponent rather than boost Jamie Hayter. And Hayter's been doing a fantastic job with that because she's one of the best wrestlers in the division. But I'm really hoping to see her get that moment to shine again very soon. And I'm just not seeing that to be the likelihood at Dynasty. I'm not going to be mad if it does end up that way. I'd feel bad for Tekla more so. But I am really wanting to see them bring more to Jamie Hayter's character very soon. Maybe this could lead to Hayter turning heel if she loses to Tekla, or when she loses to Tekla. And the second to last match that I will talk about is Jon Moxley versus Will Ospreay for the Continental Championship. This has been a pretty well-established feud. This has been practically building up since All In, since they had the Death Riders take out Will Ospreay during the main event match with Moxley and Hangman Page. And they mainly had that in storyline be the reason as to why Will Ospreay had to get the neck surgery. And the one thing that's just been very confusing about this feud is that this comes at the expense of kind of tarnishing the babyface buildup that they have been giving to Jon Moxley throughout the C2. Because when I talked about this whole thing before, so many fans were predicting that when Moxley was teasing the babyface thing at the C2, that the Death Riders were going to turn on him, which would then lead to Moxley becoming a full-blown babyface again. But he won the C2, cut one of the most passionate babyface promos I have seen from the entire decade, and the Death Riders were still along with the ride with him. And so I was just like, So then it's now become just a constant question in AEW throughout all of 2026. Are Death Riders face? Are Death Riders heel? Is Mox a face? Is Mox a heel? And I really don't know the answer to that question still. But I am still excited for the match itself, because Will Ospreay has been doing some fantastic promos. acknowledging to Moxley that like the only thing he has gratitude to him for is that it got him to spend more time with his kid at home. But now he is back and he is ready to destroy Moxley. And I am very excited for how this is going to go down. I am wondering on how violent it could get because it is listed as a singles match, but we know Mox and he likes to go as violent as he possibly can and find any creative way to make himself bleed massively. So we will see how the violent meter actually goes throughout. And as for who I think is going to win, I do think it's going to be Moxley. And I think it's mainly because I just don't see any reason to give Ospreay the Continental Championship at this moment, especially because it really seems like they're going to want to build to him getting the world title match at Wembley. So would they want him to have the Continental title as well? I don't really think so. Regardless, this is going to be a very welcome pay-per-view return match for Will Ospreay in AEW. And I honestly really hope it exceeds my expectations. I'm expecting it to be fantastic, but if it could be a top contender for match of the year thus far, that would be one of the most stunning visuals for me for the entirety of Dynasty. And now we will get into the main event, and honestly, my most anticipated match of this pay-per-view, and I always love it when my most anticipated match is the main event, MJF versus Kenny Omega for the AEW World Championship. The Devil, MJF himself, versus who many call the God of professional wrestling, Kenny Omega. This should be an absolutely astounding pro wrestling match. Their collision match is one of my favorite TV matches in AEW's history and just in American television history. I loved that match between the two. And the one downfall it had was that it wasn't on the two downfalls that it mainly had was that one, it wasn't on pay-per-view, and two, it didn't get enough time to really be an established feud. That is not the case with Dynasty. They've had the time to really build up a very good feud between the two, and Kenny Omega has been doing such a brilliant job in the promos, and MJF just selling how much Kenny is getting into his head. It's just absolutely wonderful. And all of that great work in their promos is just going to be exploited in the ring beautifully. And I cannot wait to see the fucking hijinks that MJF is going to get into, along with the incredible sequences and counters that Kenny is going to be able to nail. Because this, I think, could be the best singles match from Kenny Omega in AEW potentially ever. I'm not too sure, but this is the most hyped I've been for a Kenny Omega match in a while. And not to say that I haven't been hyped for any of the Kenny Omega matches, but I'm just really, really extra hyped for this one. I feel like this could be a top contender for one of the best main events in AEW history. I could be overhyping the hell out of myself for sure, and they could do some lame booked finish, and then I'm gonna be sitting here looking like a fucking idiot when I'm reviewing Revolution. But I have my faith. I have my faith that we are gonna get some fantastic ring work from these two on Sunday, and I feel like it could be especially expanded from their already amazing collision match. And as for who I think is going to win, while I would love to see Kenny Omega get a second AEW World title, and they've been doing a fantastic job at convincing me that Kenny could still get the win, I'm still going to lean toward MJF because I just don't see him losing that title until he's in Wembley. I just don't. But I could see the awesome shock because yeah, at the same time, I didn't think about this till just now, but I probably had thought about it over the weeks, but I wasn't thinking about it while recording this podcast, that instead of MJF and Will Ospreay, they might want to do Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay 3 because we haven't gotten the conclusion to that trilogy yet. Kenny won at Wrestle Kingdom, Ospreay won at Forbidden Door, and they've teamed up since then, but we have not seen that singles match. And honest to God, Kenny and Will Ospreay is more of a money match than MJF and Ospreay, especially because MJF and Ospreay have already fought in Wembley. Shit! All right. A real last-second decision. Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega is going to become a 2-time AEW World Champion. This is mainly me booking with my heart, not my head right now. But also at the same time, Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay at All In seems like the money match. That seems like the real ultimate money match. But are they going to do it? Or they could still do it, but are they going to have Kenny win at Dynasty and maybe not have him win it until like June? I'm going to stick with Kenny. I'm going to stick with Kenny, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But the one thing I know I'm not going to be wrong about is that MJF and Kenny Omega is going to be a fucking fantastic main event. So those are my predictions for AEW Dynasty 2026. Thank you so much for listening, and I will be sure to post a podcast review of the pay-per-view either as soon as it's over or the day after the pay-per-view. And please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, and duke out your Dynasty predictions below in the comments.